What is up, CWC? It is Tuesday, August 1st. This is the Casual Wrestling Show, the #1 rated pro wrestling podcast meant specifically for casual wrestling fans. I am the Nerdy D, and if you could do me a favor, take a second to hit the like button on YouTube or leave me a 5-star review on your favorite podcast network. That would be much appreciated this week. Lots to talk about tonight. We have to file yet another missing persons report. The IWC wants to ruin Rhea Ripley's career, but first, let's talk some smack. It was another pretty standard SmackDown this week. We saw a little bit more of the Bloodline, a little bit more of what we've come to expect for the Bloodline here in the run up until SummerSlam. Just more trying to get people excited for this showdown between Jey Uso and Roman Reigns to crown the new tribal chief. We saw Santos Escobar and Rey Mysterio. We'll talk about that in a second. We saw LA Knight defeat Ashante Adonis. We'll talk about that in a second. Bianca Belair, Charlotte Flair took on Chelsea Green and Sonya Deville. So we buried our new tag team champions by showing once again the disparity between the women wrestlers that WWE actually treats as credible threats versus the rest of the roster that they just throw into tag teams and they go, here's some belts for you guys to play with until you guys can figure out how to ascend to the top of the roster. And then we had Karrion Kross defeating Carl Anderson in some story that I'm not even sure what's going on. Look, the reality is here, outside of LA Knight, the women's WWE title, and Roman and the Bloodline, that's all SmackDown is about. That's literally what the show has become about. Going into SummerSlam, we are 6 days away from SummerSlam, and SmackDown has 2 matches scheduled for the SummerSlam card. That's it. That's all. You have this much time in between Money in the Bank and SummerSlam, and they were able to muster up on Friday nights on Fox Television Network 2 stories. One story that's been going on since as far back as we can remember with Roman Reigns, and it's the best thing on wrestling television, and that's great. It's solidified. You don't even have to do that. Showing what they've done in the last couple weeks, you don't really have to do much work to get us to the next big story point in that story, which will be at SummerSlam. Then you have Asuka, Bianca Belair, and Charlotte Flair, a story that I think has at least been put together in a sort of, a good enough way that I'm excited and it makes sense for me. Now, I think there's a little cheating here because there's honestly some trickery at play in that match. There's 2 stories going on, and it's pretty obvious when I get to my SummerSlam predictions. I'll explain that. But outside of that, you look at this SummerSlam card, which is extremely different from what I predicted a couple weeks ago. A couple weeks ago, I did a way too early SummerSlam prediction. This has completely kind of changed shape. It almost looks to me like WWE realized at some point, we've put together too many matches on Monday Night Raw, and we don't have enough time for all of this. So it looks like SmackDown's going to be the show that suffers at the end of the day. But let's talk about the things that really matter on SmackDown then, right? Because there's 3 things that really matter on SmackDown. And we don't have to talk much about the women's title right now because that's pretty self-explanatory. We talked about it last week, and they really didn't do anything but put us in a holding pattern this week moving forward. But we gotta talk about my guy. I'm a cheerleader for this man. This is my guy. This is my #1 on my list of favorite superstars right now. And it should be obvious at this point that we're going to talk about LA Knight every week I turn on a microphone. And WWE did something for me this week. Triple H did something for me this week. He drew a definitive line in the sand for me this week because he sent LA Knight out and he broke the 7-match losing streak. So we got that. That's off the table. That stone is off our back. We don't have to carry that burden around anymore. No longer is LA Knight on a losing streak. Now, we did it against Hit Row. That's fine. Whatever you wanted to throw out there. Feels like to me they have no fucking clue what to do with LA Knight. But you know what? We could debate that until the cows come home. But here's what they did for me. Triple H, he took a stick and he drew a line down the beach and he said, this is the moment. Because I've been teasing an LA Knight funeral now for the last 3 or 4 weeks. I haven't been able to pull the trigger. I keep seeing little sparks of hope that make me believe there's something there, that they're not gonna take this moment and let it fail. Even though I keep getting told they are. But Triple H drew this line in the sand for me. And he said, at SummerSlam, we're going to give you the bullshit meat stick battle royal. The meat stick, because I'm calling it, because I refuse to fucking call it. I don't need another branded match for LA Knight. We've already done the Mountain Dew pitch black thing. We don't need, LA Knight does not need to be pigeonholed into these corporate sponsorship matches. So I'm not going to call, I'll say it one time, the Slim Jim Battle Royal. After that, from now on, from here on out, it is the Meat Stick Battle Royal. A bunch of men in there fighting over meat sticks. That's what we got. But we're drawing a line in the sand here, Triple H, because this is it. This is it. There's only one person who can win this match and make it make sense. And moving forward, it just betters your company. And that is LA Knight. Do not, if LA Knight loses the meat stick battle royal, it's funeral next week. It's funeral. I'm dressing in all black. I'll put a suit on. I'll light candles. We'll dim the lights. We'll play some funeral music. And we'll dedicate the first 15 minutes of the show to just talking about the good times. The good times that we had with LA Knight. Because if LA Knight loses the meat stick battle royal, he's done. His career is over. Don't tell me his push is coming after SummerSlam. His push is coming after Backlash. His push is coming after WrestleMania. His push is coming after Money in the Bank. I'm fucking tired of waiting. This is it. I'm drawing the line in the sand. I said this a couple weeks ago. I said, look, WWE fans, Daniel Bryan tried to fucking throw this out. The WWE fans are fickle. You're fucking right, we are. I only have so much time to invest into somebody, and I don't invest into losers. So Triple H is dead set on making LA Knight a loser, then I'm done. I will have the funeral. We will talk about the good times, and then we will move on, and we will put our chips into another basket. We will figure out the next superstar that we want to get behind. The next person that they're trying to shove down our throat. Because obviously, if Triple H, if he doesn't have LA Knight win the meat stick battle royal, there is no future for LA Knight. There is no future if you can't win. He didn't win the Mountain Dew pitch black match. So if he can't win the meat stick battle royal, there's absolutely no future. They have no plan and nothing involved for him. The only positive thing that can come out of this match is when LA Knight wins the meat stick battle royal, he can grab a microphone and look into the camera and say, slam into a Slim Jim. Oh yeah. That's it. That's the best part. Slam into a Slim Jim. Oh yeah. That's it. That's the best thing that can come from this. But more than likely, Triple H is going to do what he always does, and he's going to disappoint me at SummerSlam. And I'm going to fucking tell you guys, this is a problem because I plan to live stream SummerSlam. I am going to be in a piss poor mood the entire live stream if LA Knight doesn't win the pitch black, the meat stick battle royal. I mean, I will be in a shitty mood. I might shut the stream off. I might make a deal with you guys right now because we got to assume the meat stick battle royal is either going to be a opening match like pre-show or it's going to be thrown in early on the card. He loses, I shut it off. I'm just pulling the plug. I'm not even going to say anything. I'll just look into the camera, I'll wave goodbye, and I'll pull the plug. And I'll disappear. And I'll be gone. And that's what will happen. The second thing I wanted to talk about on SmackDown this week was Rey Mysterio's injury. That was interesting. So Rey Mysterio, if you know, for anybody who didn't watch SmackDown, Rey Mysterio did his typical slide out of the ring, was on the outside. Santos did a suicide dive of sorts, hit Rey Mysterio. Rey Mysterio flew back, hit his head on the mat, and from there, we went to commercial break, came back, and the match was officially just done. They just called it off. And that's wrestling. That happens. I don't think anything that happened there was real out of the ordinary. This isn't one of those moments where I'm going to talk about how dangerous wrestling can be. That was oh shit, something went wrong. Something happened. And there's dangers in any sport where you make physical contact with each other. So that's not what I want to talk about. What I want to talk about is the reporting after the incident. Because it was very unclear as far as, first off, WWE not making it clear on, is Rey Mysterio okay or is he really injured? So then I went to official WWE web news sites, not official, but sites that are reputable, right? And I clicked and I looked through their articles and I found articles that said, this is all a work. This is all part of the story. This is how they wanted that match to go. And I went, I don't like that story. That doesn't make sense to me. But then I clicked some other websites and I found, no, Rey's actually hurt. And you literally in real time could go to two different reputable websites and find conflicting stories on what happened to Rey Mysterio in that match. And it absolutely, that is absolutely not a good thing for the sport of professional wrestling. It's just not. And it got me to thinking the only way that WWE could really fix this, and it makes sense, most major sports companies do this already. Why does WWE just not issue a weekly injury report or even a real-time injury report on WWE.com? And don't tell me, it breaks the fourth wall, it breaks kayfabe. Most people don't really, anybody who's willing to go that deep to that level to check it out, that has concern for Rey Mysterio's health, they're not the person who's going to be affected by finding out Rey Mysterio's really hurt. It's not going to ruin the story for them. But if WWE had just a section of the website that you could click on and you were able to identify real quick, Rey Mysterio, head injury, part of a storyline, expected back at this time, that would be nice. Or if it said Rey Mysterio, head injury, this is a real injury, details to come, that would be extremely nice. It would be nice to be able to, in real time, look up what has happened to these people that, the reality is, as wrestling fans, we do have affection for these people, especially, I would say, the casual fan whose relationship with wrestling is based less on the X's and O's and more on the personal connection that they take to certain wrestlers, right? Certain little kids have a strong affinity for Rey Mysterio. And so, if your kid has to go to school the next day and they're like, I don't know if fucking Rey Mysterio's dying, I don't know what's going on, it might be nice to be able to comfort them. And I get the argument that it breaks kayfabe and it takes you, but to me, in 2023, and the way wrestling is booked to kind of blur the lines of reality, I do believe that it doesn't break kayfabe enough. Some people are just concerned with the health of certain wrestlers, whether it's a real injury or it's a work, it doesn't make sense. And when you go online the next day, and with the amount of news sources there are, it's absolutely ridiculous to be able to click on two websites at the same time and see one story that says Rey Mysterio's just fine, that's the way they wanted the story to go, versus, Rey Mysterio's really hurt, it's a concussion, and now they've got to alter the story. That's not good for business. That's absolutely not good for business, WWE. All right, guys, it appears we're going off script for a second here with a vital interruption for this week's WWE Missing Persons Report. Guys, it seems that a new WWE superstar has seemingly vanished from television. This week, in our ongoing search, we are looking for none other than the disconcerting and unsettling powerhouse, Dexter Lumis. Last seen in a WWE ring on May 29, 2023, Lumis showed his mettle in a victorious effort on Main Event against Akira Tozawa. Any information that you can provide the CWC, no matter how big or how small the tip is, it is gratefully appreciated and will be investigated accordingly. Leave all tips in the comment section of this video or on the CWC Discord. The link is in the description of this video. Now, casting our minds back to last week, we were in search of the one superstar named Rick Boogs. Fortunately, Boogs has been located on his X account, where he's diligently sharing videos of his daily gym workouts. In fact, he had wrestled a dark match against Cameron Grimes on the July 28th SmackDown, showing that he's just waiting for the call back to television. Now, considering that Dexter Lumis has an affinity for creating portraits of his destruction and his almost artistic approach to his bouts, one can't help but wonder where this unique individual might turn up next. But that is all that we have for this installment of the WWE Missing Persons Report. Dear CWC, keep your eyes and senses alert for any signs of Dexter Lumis, and remember to reach out to us on all social media channels with any leads that you find. We now return to our regular podcast programming. Stay tuned for future updates on the search for Dexter Lumis, and let's get raw. So Monday Night Raw this week, I don't think it was as good as the past couple of weeks, but I don't mean that in a negative light. I think that it was a go-home show, and it did exactly what a go-home show is supposed to do going into one of the big four pay-per-views or premium live events, whatever you want to call it. So it's not a knock. I just don't think I didn't leave this Monday Night Raw with the same excitement that I left the last two. There was a couple things I picked up on during Monday Night Raw that I wanted to discuss this week and talk about and get your guys' opinions on kind of the things that were kicking around inside my mind. Number one, we started the show with Logan Paul and Ricochet. This always interests me because on a go-home show, I have no information to back this up, but I always feel like what starts the show is what WWE is kind of most self-conscious about going into the premium live event. I think they look at the matches on the card and they go, what needs that initial kind of push into the premium live event where people will be excited? And I do believe that it is this Logan Paul and Ricochet match that kind of has WWE going, was Ricochet the right guy? And looking at it, I'm going to say, no, I don't think so. I think when I look at this card, when I look at SummerSlam, when I look at the way everything is played out, was Ricochet the right guy to put into the ring with Logan Paul? No. And it's not just simply based on Ricochet's level of I guess, how over he is with the WWE audience, because Logan Paul is going to be Logan Paul. He's going to be hated by some. He's going to be loved by some. He's going to bring in his own audience. He kind of has in this built-in cushion that no matter who Logan Paul fights, Logan Paul fans will be excited. But Ricochet is the B-side of this card, and you have to ask yourself, was that the best B-side of the card that they could put on SummerSlam to create one of 7 matches that entertains the crowd, and what is your second most important premium live event of the year? And I don't think so. But I think it goes deeper than just, Ricochet's status in the company. Because if you want my true opinion, with LA Knight being in the meat stick battle royal, you missed a huge fucking opportunity not putting Logan Paul versus LA Knight, having LA Knight beat the life out of Logan Paul, strapping a rocket on LA Knight's ass and sending him to the moon after beating Logan Paul. That's missed opportunity. Not going to talk about it anymore. We'll focus on Ricochet, Logan Paul. I picked up on a little nuance that Logan kept using this phrase. Most viral match in WWE history. Now, if this is Ricochet and any other high-flying wrestler, I'd go, okay, cool. That we could get there. We could probably get there. This is Logan Paul, and this is Ricochet. Two guys who we just saw at Money in the Bank try to do some springboard maneuver off of the ropes into a table, and it went completely poorly. And now it seems like the mindset going into SummerSlam is we're going to set the world on fire. We are going to do some wild ass shit. That scares me. It scares me incredibly because I look at Logan Paul and I see a guy who's willing to do absolutely anything to get over with the crowd. To set the internet on fire. And then I look at Ricochet, and based on what I saw at Money in the Bank, I see a guy who is probably right there next to him, willing to do the same thing, who's looking to elevate his name within the ranks of WWE. And what that spells for me, it spells disaster. Because what it spells for me is something that looks a lot like an AEW style match with lots of flips and jumps and spots that take way too long to set up and things that guys probably aren't really capable of, but we're going to try it. And supposedly this is the match that opens up SummerSlam. This is the tone setter. Now, I'll be the first to say it. If everything goes right, great. This will set the building on fire. This has potential to be one of the most exciting matches of the night. If all goes to plan, sure. Great. Big moment for WWE, but here's the flip side. What if something goes wrong? What if something bad happens? What if Logan does something that Logan shouldn't be doing and Logan ends up seriously injured? SummerSlam is supposed to be a party. It's not a party within the first 10 minutes of the party, someone breaks their leg. That kind of brings the mood down. This scares me. This is real concerns. And it's not fair if I voice these concerns when I'm talking about AEW and I'm talking about Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks. It's not fair to voice those concerns for AEW and not turn around when I hear Logan Paul completely just repeat time after time, this is going to be the most viral match in WWE history. And not walk into this match with a sense of worry. There's just something smells wrong about this to me, and I'm nervous. And in 6 days we'll find out. Could I be wrong? Sure. Hopefully I'm wrong. This is one of those times where I say something out loud and I hope I'm wrong. But I also think there has to be an adult in the room, and the adult in the room has to tell the kids it's not smart to jump off the couch. It's not smart to jump on the bed. And I think that Ricochet and Logan Paul are about to start doing some shit that resembles your kids jumping on their bed, jumping off the bed onto the couch, onto the windowsill. That's the type of shit we're probably going to see in this match. And I have to get it out there and say that it scares me. Second thing I want to talk about, and I'm going to talk about this knowing that NXT starts in about an hour from when I started this podcast. So this could all be mute after I say it, but I'm going to say it. I'll put it on the internet, and then people can tell me I'm wrong if I'm wrong. But my boy Mike inside the Discord hit me with a theory that I'm gonna lead this into. We'll get there. Follow me here. So we learned on Monday Night Raw that Rhea Ripley does not have a match at SummerSlam. Okay, we learned at Monday Night Raw that Raquel Rodriguez, the most fragile superstar in the WWE, is hurt again. So now with Liv Morgan hurt, Raquel Rodriguez hurt, this left Rhea Ripley out on an island. And I think this is interesting because I got onto Twitter last night. I jumped into some of the forums last night. I tried to take the temperature of the world to see what does everybody feel about Rhea Ripley right now. And I noticed something. As I tread through the swamps and I entered into the caves of the IWC, I noticed a trend. The IWC is relishing this moment. The IWC is enjoying the fact that Rhea Ripley is not on the SummerSlam card. The IWC is outright calling Rhea Ripley the worst WWE Women's Champion of all time. That's not my words. That's what the IWC is saying. And as I dug through these threads that they were creating, I noticed a trend. They like to talk about Rhea Ripley only has 2 meaningful title defenses since she won the title at WrestleMania. It's hard to argue with that. It is hard to argue with that. Then the second argument they made was, explain to me what Rhea Ripley is currently doing that she couldn't be doing without a title belt. It's hard to argue with that. Those are 2 strong points by the IWC that at first had me a little bit tongue-tied. I don't know what to say. But then I thought deeper. And I thought about Roman Reigns. And I thought about the criticism that Roman Reigns takes. And I thought about MJF and some of the criticism that MJF takes. And I thought, do we have an expectation of champions defending their belt? Is that expectation? Do we set that too high? What is the correct amount of times that somebody should defend their belt in a calendar year? In a quarter of a year? Once? 4 times a year? It's weird because when you break it down differently, is it once a month? Should a champion defend their belt 12 times a year? That seems excessive. I don't think they have to do it at every premium live event. Every other one, 6 times a year. It's hard to say, but I do think that after a lot of thought, I think we have to stop judging title reigns by the number of defenses and more just about the importance of what that WWE superstar or AEW wrestler is doing. There's no doubt in my mind right now, Rhea Ripley is the number 1 star in WWE. I believe this wholeheartedly. After going to American Bash, I believe this wholeheartedly. I've taken polls within the CWC. Rhea Ripley came out number 1 over Roman Reigns. Now, I get Roman Reigns is the main attraction, but Rhea Ripley is the fan favorite. And so the reality is, yeah, what could she be doing right now that she couldn't do, what is she doing right now that she couldn't do without the title? Probably nothing. But everything she's doing right now is just heightened a little bit because she is the champion. Her bringing that title out at American Bash, it just adds a level of elevation to the Judgment Day. Her holding that title after she beats up Raquel Rodriguez, forcing her not to be on SummerSlam, it just elevates that a little bit. I think the bigger question that has to be asked is, there's nobody stepping up enough to really present a credible threat to Rhea Ripley at SummerSlam. Outside of Becky Lynch, outside of Bianca, Charlotte, Asuka, maybe Raquel Rodriguez, there's nobody on the roster that presents a credible threat. So there's a part of me that goes, maybe the best decision was don't have Rhea Ripley wrestle at SummerSlam. But I will say, this argument from the IWC, it's extremely one-sided. It's not fair because in one breath, they will tell you about Rhea Ripley, but in the second breath, they will tell you how MJF is the greatest AEW champion of all time, and that's just not a fair argument. The reality is, I judge wrestling. This is how I judge wrestling. I judge it by, it's an eye test, right? I look around. Whose t-shirt is selling? It's Rhea Ripley's. Who's getting the TV screen time? Rhea Ripley is all over that television. Who is doing things and trend setting? Rhea Ripley is at American Bash slamming Wesley through a table. That's just reality. And where I overreact for LA Knight, I don't have a worry for Rhea Ripley at SummerSlam. Rhea Ripley will be involved heavily in whatever the Judgment Day is involved in. That's where Rhea will be. And I have some things I want to talk about when we get to the predictions of the show, but I have a major prediction for Rhea Ripley. Now, let's talk a little bit about SummerSlam because it is a Raw dominant show. We talked about that opening up this episode. There's 2 SmackDown and 5 Raw matches. And last night in the Discord, while Monday Night Raw was going on, I threw out this thought line after Becky and Trish kind of got pushed to the side. Doesn't look like that's a SummerSlam match. I threw out a question. I said, I don't know if I'm excited about this or not. I don't know. And so I took overnight, I kind of took some time to think about it, to figure out what's causing that little bit of doubt. What's causing that skepticism and making me go, because everybody in the Discord was telling me, this is the card. NerdyD, this is the card. This is going to be a show. This is going to be a great show. This is going to be a show as good as last year's SummerSlam. And just something, there was a pit in my stomach that wouldn't let me just go, you're right. So I took the time last night to sit down and just look at the card and just go, what's wrong here? What's bothering me about this card? And I figured it out. It's familiar. Now, I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing, but it's just familiar. Every match that I look at on this card, I go, I've seen this within the last 6 months in some form or fashion. It's nothing new. And SummerSlam has always felt like the night of surprises, kind of the night of change, right? It's we're kind of leaving the summer. We're gonna kind of hit the fall season of wrestling, which, you know, quickly turns into the road to WrestleMania. And so I look at this and I go, it's familiar. And like I said, I don't know if that's bad, but I do know that it doesn't feel fresh. Seth Rollins versus Finn Balor. This is a rematch. This is something we've seen before less than probably 35 days ago. That's not a bad thing. It's just familiar. Roman versus Jay. We're just taking out the tag team partners, but this is what we saw a month ago. Not a bad thing. This will be a great match to watch, but it's just still familiar. Drew McIntyre versus Gunther. We saw this at WrestleMania. You throw in Sheamus, but all the pieces are still relatively the same, right? We've seen this a couple times in the recent past. Not a bad thing, just familiar. Brock versus Cody, saw it at Money in the Bank, saw it at Backlash. We're seeing it again. Not a bad thing, just familiar. Bianca Belair and Asuka, we saw them at WrestleMania. We're throwing in Charlotte Flair. Just feels familiar. The only match on this card that doesn't feel familiar is Shayna Baszler versus Ronda Rousey. That's it. And it's an MMA style match, which we don't really know a lot about. Should be good. So when I look at this card from top to bottom, I am excited for it. It's going to be a good card. It's just going to feel extremely familiar to me. You know, you look at this card, there's no United States title championship. That could have been exciting. LA Knight versus Theory could have felt fresh, could have felt exciting, could have been different. Rhea Ripley versus Raquel Rodriguez could have been different. It could have been fresh. It could have added that little bit of to this card that this card needed, right? No men's tag team championship match. No women's tag team championship match. Now I get Kevin Owens is hurt. Should have got the titles off of him. Should have got the titles on to Judgment Day. That's what should have happened. That would have added another fresh element to SummerSlam. And then you don't have Chelsea and Sonya involved, which could have added another fresh element to SummerSlam. I'm not saying SummerSlam is a bad card. When I look at it, I am excited. It's just too familiar for me. So what does that say to me? And so with all this familiarity, I think that it leads me to one conclusion. Something big has to happen. There's something we don't know about. Something's going to happen that will leave us talking the following day. And I think that there's realistically only one thing that can happen. And I do believe pretty deep down in my heart, there's a strong possibility that Bray Wyatt attacks Cody Rhodes post Cody versus Brock. I think that Brock and Cody not having a stipulation is 100% a reflection of the fact that the stipulation is Cody goes over clean and we're immediately beginning a program with Bray Wyatt. I think it almost has to be that. It feels like that's one of the only things that can get the reaction that the WWE needs coming out of SummerSlam. Because when you look like Randy Orton Riddle's not on the card, and you would think that Riddle would be involved if Randy was going to be involved. So Randy may come back. Hopefully it's not in the Meat Stick Battle Royal, but I think looking at this card, it's so familiar that it needs something unfamiliar, and I think Bray Wyatt can be that unfamiliar thing that we get at SummerSlam that kind of leaves us with that feel-good feeling and makes us kind of leave SummerSlam knowing there was enough different that this just didn't feel like a recap of the rest of the premium live events from earlier in the year. So that is a wrap on Getting Raw this week. Hold on, I'm getting something. It appears that we have a trade proposal from Tony Khan. Let's check it out. In breaking news this week, it appears that we have a trade submission proposal. As commissioner of the casual wrestling chapter of the WWE Universe, I will take it upon myself to review the following trade to see if it meets the requirements of the casual wrestling community. This week's trade was submitted by an AI Tony Khan. Now, I've received the official trade proposal from AI Tony Khan, and it states, trade proposal. AEW proposes Wardlow and Bryan Danielson in exchange for WWE's Braun Breaker and Bobby Lashley. He attaches, Wardlow is a dominant force with immense potential, and his move to the WWE could pave the way for interesting storylines, especially alongside the likes of Braun Strowman and Roman Reigns. Stop blowing smoke up my ass here, Tony Khan. On the other hand, Braun Breaker is a rising star in WWE, known for his power and athleticism. His style could mesh well with AEW's roster. He says, this trade could benefit both of our companies by offering fresh matchups and potential storylines. Let me know your thoughts. Well, Tony, I'm gonna let you know my thoughts real quick. That's bullshit. We've had Bryan Danielson. We don't need Bryan Danielson again. I see no excitement in bringing Bryan Danielson back to the WWE. Wardlow excites me, but not at the cost of Braun Breaker. If you want Braun Breaker, you're gonna have to sweeten that deal. So I'm gonna respond to you, Tony Khan, by saying you're going to have to sweeten the deal. Okay? We have a response. Tony Khan says, in addition to Wardlow and Bryan Danielson, AEW is proposing adding the Icon Sting to the trade. The new revised trade proposal, Wardlow, Bryan Danielson, and Sting in exchange for Braun Breaker and Bobby Lashley. Please let me know your thoughts on my revised trade proposal. I don't know that adding a 60-year-old man to this trade sweetened the pot for me. Now there are we could probably send Sting to the NXT Performance Center and get some use out of him there. But as far as on screen, I don't like the idea of trading away Braun Breaker for a bunch of age. So I'm gonna tell Tony Khan here, Braun is just too valuable. You're gonna have to sweeten the pot even more. This time, add some youth. All right, Tony Khan responds, I completely understand. Braun Breaker is indeed a valuable young asset. In light of this, I will revise the trade proposal with young talent. We received a revised trade proposal. AEW submits Wardlow, Bryan Danielson, and Jungle Boy, along with Sting, in exchange for Braun Breaker and Bobby Lashley. He says that Jungle Boy is one of our brightest young stars and has great promise with his in-ring ability and charisma. Let me know your thoughts on this trade. I'm not concerned losing Bobby Lashley. Bobby's a big deal, but he's 40-something years old. I can part with Bobby Lashley and create a new Bobby Lashley in the next 10 years. It's Braun Breaker that bothers me in this trade because Braun Breaker is a future Hall of Famer. So if I'm going to let Braun Breaker go, I have to get back twice the value in return that I can't say no to. And I just don't think that Jungle Boy, Sting, Bryan Danielson, and Wardlow is enough for me to make that trade. So I'm gonna propose a counter offer to Tony Khan here and see if he accepts. I'm going to counter you, Tony Khan. I want Wardlow, I want Jungle Boy, I want Sting, and I want Luchasaurus for Braun Breaker and Bobby Lashley. Tony Khan has responded. I appreciate the counteroffer. In this situation, I think that is a fair deal. AEW sends Wardlow, Luchasaurus, Jungle Boy, and Sting to the WWE in exchange for Braun Breaker and Bobby Lashley. Okay. Deal is done. Wardlow and Luchasaurus, they add strength and size to the WWE roster. I think that they're guys who can get over as stars on the WWE roster. We do lose Braun Breaker, but I think that NXT is capable of producing big stars. We still got Carmelo Hayes. We still got Tony D'Angelo. There's enough talent down there that we can create a star. I think we win this deal, but let me know in the comment section of this video, did I win or did I lose this trade with artificially intelligent Tony Khan? And let me know what you would have offered. All right, so speaking of AEW, let's talk a little AEW for casuals here. A couple quick things I want to touch on. I want to touch on CM Punk. CM Punk's kind of been the hot button topic in AEW. And now CM Punk comes out on Collision, and CM Punk has his own shiny new title. He brought out his World Heavyweight AEW Championship, spray painted an X on the middle of it, and claims he is the true AEW champion. Now, I have a question. I have some questions. As a casual fan, I have some questions for the IWC that maybe you guys could respond and let me know what I'm missing here. Okay? So CM Punk comes out on Collision, spray paints the world title, says he is the new world champion. All while your real world champion is in the back at AEW Collision and refuses to come out and acknowledge what is going on. You guys explain that to me. How does your champion not come out and say something? He's at the show. He's scheduled to be on later that night. That felt like a direct fuck you to Team Dynamite. You know, IWC, explain to me how you guys talk shit for so long about WWE having two champions. What's going on here, guys? What are you guys doing? You guys, what it is you guys are splintering. The IWC is splintering. See, there used to just be one core group of IWC, but I'm seeing a mutation. The IWC now has half the group that supports Collision. And now I believe that the IWC has evolved into the IWE. And the IWE is the Internet Wrestling Elite. And they are the group that still stay behind Kenny Omega and stay behind the Young Bucks, and they will defend AEW till the day it dies, especially Dynamite. So you guys are going to, someone's got to explain this to me. CM Punk literally comes out on television with a new t-shirt that says, I am a Collision guy. Talk about drawing a line in the sand. Talking about creating tribalism. And wasn't CM Punk the guy who just a couple weeks ago went on his Instagram and dropped a little gem for everybody to watch that said tribalism in wrestling is stupid?
One more before I go really quick. The parasocial relationship a lot of fringe wrestling fans have with certain people is really unhealthy. I get the tribalism, like it's fun to root for your team, but picking sides seems a little silly. You don't know me, you don't know anybody else. So, just go touch grass.
Feels like your shirt is promoting tribalism. I'm not sure, but when you say I am a Collision guy, it feels like you're drawing the line in the sand. And I'll be the first to say I fucking love it. I love this kind of tribalism. But I can see the IWC starting to fight with themselves. I went into the message boards and I saw them starting to eat their own. The IWC is now fighting the IWE. And if you guys don't follow this kind of shit, you need to jump on your computer, go into these dark corners of the wrestling world and just watch these guys start to eat their own. I mean, And you know what it is? Where this stems from is they tried to mount an attack on the CWC. They tried to come after the casual wrestling community, and our bond was too strong. We just didn't care. They tried to go, well, you guys aren't casual, and we hit them back with all the reasons that were casual that all made sense, and they were like, fuck, that makes sense. So then they turned around, they go, well, let's go after the Collision guys. They started to eat their own. It's hilarious. And Tony Khan poured gasoline on the fire because what he did on Collision was all he did was pushed back a decision he has to make a couple more weeks. He had MJF and Adam Cole lose to FTR and not break up. He chose the most chicken shit solution to that match. It had to go one or two ways. It had to be Adam Cole and MJF winning that match and becoming your tag team champions, or it had to be one of them turning on the other. Pushing this down the road was complete chicken shit. It was a waste of a main event. It was a waste of a tag team tournament. It makes absolutely no fucking sense from storytelling perspective. And here we are. Tony Khan pouring gasoline, creating this fucking fire. We now have an IWC. We now have an IWE. We have all of this bullshit that we have to fucking put up with, and we have to listen to on TikTok, and we have to listen to on YouTube, and we have to listen to in Reddit. Tony Khan created all this bullshit, and I'm tired of it. That's it. That's the clusterfuck that was AEW this week. All right, in this week's What Does It All Meme, this is a meme that I created that I wanted to propose to you guys so you guys could answer and let me know your thoughts. But the meme this week is, what WWE superstar is most deserving of a world title run that will probably never get one? So you guys shoot me your answers either in the comment section of this video, on the Discord, on Instagram, on is it Twitter or is it X? I think it's X now. Shoot me your answer on X, shoot me your answer on Thread, wherever you can find me, shoot me your answer. I'll talk about the best answers next week, and I'll answer the question as well for you guys next week. All right, this is the part of the show where I discuss the best things that I saw inside of the Casual Wrestling Discord, the dirt sheets, and the wild world of wrestling forums. And in true WWE fashion, we are allowed to have as many main events as we want, because fuck it, words don't have meaning anymore. This week we have 4 things to talk about. 5 things to talk about. I have 5 things to talk about this week in the main event. First, quick thoughts on the Cody Rhodes documentary. I made it about an hour into the documentary before I had to start recording this show. It's not bad. It's, they hyped it up. It's the story of Cody Rhodes. It follows the same story that kind of every wrestling documentary follows. It's going to glorify the good. It's going to talk about the bad. And it's inevitably just telling the story of Cody Rhodes. I definitely will finish it this week, but I'm not. It wasn't, I think people were building it up to be this enormous, breathtaking story. And to me, it was just another documentary. So I'm watch it if you want to. We can talk about it more next week when I finish. But initial thoughts are, it's a good story. I think some of the stuff about Dusty's interesting. I think that being a casual fan, I don't know the deep history of wrestling, so it does give me insights into that. But I always take things that WWE produces with a grain of salt, because it also appears a little bit to be kind of a hit piece on AEW and kind of a get back for Cody Rhodes and Triple H. So I'll know more next week, but just initial thoughts are, let's all watch it. We can talk about it next week. Second thing I saw on the internet that I wanted to talk about, this was a question from Reddit that I pulled up, and it was, if you were given $1 million to have to fight one male superstar on the WWE roster in a shoot fight, who do you pick? It's got to be Dom, right? I mean, it's got to be Dom, right? I can't think of anybody else on the roster that I think that in a fight is just hands down, I know I'm coming out of that thing victorious. I'm sure, I'm confident I can beat up a lot of guys on the WWE roster. I'd go 50%. I think I could take 50% of the roster. Yeah, I'm pretty. If I had 6 months to train, I could take 50% of the roster. But I know for sure, without a shadow of the doubt, I'm handling Dominic in under 5 minutes. One round in a cage. Dom's done. Easy. We're gonna save SummerSlam predictions for the end of this because I'm gonna bring Lauren in on that one. Let's talk about the new casual rating, the casual wrestling match rating system for premium live events. It's something new that I want to do. This is the new system that we are going to create a section in the Discord, and we will rate matches based on this standard. So in an attempt to kind of counter the Dave Meltzer star rating system, I thought it would be fun that as a casual community, we came up with a system to rate WWE premium live event matches. And I went with a 1 through 5 rating system. And so each of these, there's 5, what would you call these? 5 categories that we are going to rate the match on. Number 1 being in-ring performance. The in-ring performance, the X's and O's, we will rate 1 through 10 and use that towards a bigger score. The match pacing and structure, that's 1 through 10. We'll use that to get to a bigger score. The storytelling and the drama, that's 1 through 10. We'll use that to get to a bigger, thing of the score. The creativity and innovation, that's 1 through 10. And then ultimately we will have just a straight up fan vote. You rate the match 1 through 10, and we will use that to create the casual wrestling scoring system. So the maximum number of points a match could get would be 50 points. And we have a 5-point scale, which means 5 would equal an amazing match. 4 would equal a great match. 3 will equal an okay match. 2 will equal a bad match. And 1 is an absolute dog shit clusterfuck match. So we'll try that out this week at SummerSlam. We'll have a place on the Discord where everybody can immediately drop in their votes, and we will add them up, and we will come out with, I'm working on a website for the casual community, so we'll have an official website where these scores will be posted for everybody to look at. The last thing I wanted to talk about for our main event this week was I took the long trip up to Austin this past weekend to watch WWE NXT's American Bash. Now, I'm not someone who follows NXT strongly. I know the names. I read enough to know what's going on. But, I'm a person with enough wrestling knowledge that I can figure it out as I watch. And so I went to American Bash, took my whole family. We had a blast. It was so much fun. A couple things I noticed. Couple things I noticed. NXT definitely feels like the equivalent to AEW. I think that, that is the comparison that the IWC always tries to make. I can flip it back around. It feels like, pretty solid comparison. That's the level that AEW is on. Watching an NXT show feels like watching an AEW show. I think that there are a lot of superstars in waiting on NXT. I think that Roxanne Perez is going to be a big deal. I think Carmelo Hayes is going to be a big deal. I think Wes Lee is going to be a big deal. I think Tony D'Angelo is going to be a big deal. So I see no problem there. Lots of superstars in waiting. WWE is going to be set for the foreseeable future. I wanted to talk about Baron Corbin and Gable Steveson. That was a fun match. I know a lot of people were disappointed, but I will tell you, not knowing anything about what was about to happen and seeing the crowd's genuine reaction to Gable Stevens and the boos and the "You're not Kurt Angle" chants and the "Let's go Corbin," I thought that was extremely fun to watch as well. But there's one thing I took out of NXT American Bash that I think has to be talked about. Tiffany Stratton. This is funny because I was sitting with my 2 daughters and of course, she comes out with the Barbie, the Barbie Titantron. She's got the music. She's got the look. She's a superstar, man. Tiffany Stratton is the next big thing in WWE. You can mark my words. And I know everybody's trying to hate on the fact that she couldn't lock in a Boston Crab on Thea, whatever her name is, but that girl's like 4'7". That girl is tiny. I know they list her at 5'5", they bill her at 5'5" on the wrestling wikis. There's no way that girl's 5'5". That girl's 5'2" on stilts. And so I saw the hate for Tiffany Stratton not being able to lock in the Boston Crab. It appeared to me from where I was sitting that it looked like because of the position she had to get into to keep the Boston Crab, that she was getting leg cramps. I can't confirm that. That's just what I saw. But I will say, based on just the entire package, her athleticism, her look, her music, her attitude, her ability to talk, the character she's creating, she's going to be a star. She needs to be brought up to the main roster when she's ready. Now, I don't know when that is. I don't know how raw she is around the edges, but from what I see, this is who they chose to kind of replace Mandy Rose with. Solid choice. I see big things in Tiffany Stratton's future. I think I see bigger things than Carmelo Hayes, Wes Lee, Braun Breaker, and that's saying a lot because all of those guys are going to have promising WWE careers, but I just think that Tiffany Stratton is everything that is kind of missing on the main roster. When you look at the main roster as a whole, you don't have that. Charlotte would be the next thing, but I think at 24 years old, I believe Tiffany Stratton's 24 years old, you don't have that youth coming up that can do the things she does. The prettiest moonsault, that's a fantastic finisher. That thing looks good. Her whole packaging, the Barbie stuff, the way the little girls respond to her, like even as a heel, there's still a part of the crowd that likes her. She's just kind of got it all figured out. So I think my big takeaway from NXT American Bash was that Tiffany Stratton is going to be a big deal in the near future. All right, it's that time of the show. Let's finish off the episode with this week's Power 10 rankings. This week, we decided to go with finishing moves. And in a new decision, every week is going to be different. We're not going to circle back to our original. We are going to do something different every week and create a catalog of the casual Power 10, top 10, whatever for professional wrestling. This week is finishing moves. At number 10, the 10th most popular finishing maneuver in the casual wrestling community was the Last Ride with 11 points. At number 9, we have the GTS with 13 points. At number 8, we have the Rock Bottom with 14 points. At number 7, we have the People's Elbow scoring 16 points. There was a tie for 5th place. Tied at 23 points, we have the Figure 4 Leg Lock and the Spear, both scoring, what I said, 23 points. Number 4 was the Pedigree with 25 points. Number 3, Sweet Chin Music with 36 points. Number 2, the Stone Cold Stunner with 59 points. And the walk-away winner this week, the number 1 finishing move as voted by the casual wrestling community. Make sure to join the casual wrestling community Discord so that you can place your vote every week. The number 1 finisher is the RKO with 72 points. But that is all I have for you guys this week. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel on YouTube or your favorite podcast network. You can chime in on all of today's topics in the casual community Discord. Make sure to send me an invite or follow on all social media. I am at NotoriousNerdyD on TikTok, Instagram, Threads, Twitter, X, whatever they're calling it these days. That's what I'm on. And as always, we get to end this very casual podcast with a final bell.
Step in the ring, if you ready, let's go. Hey, casual wrestling community show. You already know, talking WWE. Keep it rolling and hosted by Notorious NerdyD. Dope show that you gon' find. Tune in cause it's online. Hit 'em with a figure 4 leg lock, power driver or clothesline. We bringing that heat like the show, but you should